Last year, Australia's net overseas migration plunged by 29%. Yet this was not border panic or pandemic fear. The rules quietly changed, and suddenly international students, skilled workers, and families faced roadblocks where open doors once stood. But behind every new gate is a purpose, and the real impact has only begun to surface. What triggered the 2026 immigration trap, and who will pay the price? Australia's identity has always been shaped by the movement of people. In the aftermath of World War II, the government launched an ambitious campaign to swell the nation's population, driven by the slogan, "Populate or perish." Policymakers saw immigration as a shield against future threats and as a way to fuel economic growth. Ships arrived carrying thousands of European migrants, each wave adding to the country's workforce and its cultural landscape. By the late 20th century, these arrivals were no longer just about numbers. The focus turned to skills as Australia faced new economic realities and greater global competition. In the 1990s, a points-based system took hold, one of the first of its kind in the world. Applicants were measured not just by age or education, but by their ability to contribute to the nation's evolving economy. English proficiency, work experience, and qualifications became the new currency for entry. This approach promised a dynamic, adaptable population, and for decades it delivered steady growth. Governments adjusted the points test over time, responding to labour shortages and to surpluses, always seeking to balance opportunity with national interest. The promise was clear: Australia would remain open, but only to those who could help build its future. Yet as the 21st century unfolded, pressures began to mount on housing, on wages, and on public confidence. The stage was set for the most significant recalibration in a generation. By 2025, the permanent migration program held steady at 185,000 places, but the meaning of that number had changed. 71% over 132,000 spots were now reserved for skilled migrants, reflecting a deliberate tilt toward economic contributions. The family stream, once a larger share, was capped at 52,500 places, just 28% of the total. The biggest cut landed on the skilled independent visa, subclass 189. Once a flagship pathway for qualified workers without employer sponsorship, it shrank to just 16,900 places. That is less than half its allocation from earlier in the decade. The employer-sponsored category, by contrast, saw its allocation rise, giving businesses more say over who enters the country. State and territory nomination programs also became more competitive, with only 33,000 places to be divided among all jurisdictions. These numbers sent a clear message. General entry was narrowing, and the days of broad points-based opportunity were giving way to targeted selection. For many aspiring migrants, the headline cap now concealed a more selective reality. The program's composition meant that not all visas were created equal. Some doors had been quietly closed, while others were propped open for those who could prove their immediate value. The recalibration was not just about how many people could come, but about who would be allowed to stay and build their future in Australia. For international students, the path to Australia in 2026 is lined with new hurdles. The first test comes before they ever set foot on campus. The Genuine Student Test, known as GS, introduced in March 2024, demands clear, evidence-backed answers, with each response capped at just 150 words. Gone are the days of broad, hopeful essays. Now every applicant must prove academic intent, financial strength, and ties to home, all within tight limits. The stakes are high. The cost of applying has climbed to $2,000 Australian dollars, and students must show they have at least 29,710 Australian dollars in living expenses, an increase of 5,000 Australian dollars in a single year. English standards are up too, with a minimum IELTS score of 6.0 for study visas, and 6.5 for those hoping to stay after graduation. The cost of entry is higher. From January 2025, the rules get stricter still. A simple letter of offer is no longer enough. Students must provide a confirmation of enrollment from the start, closing a loophole that once allowed applications on the promise of a place. Those unable to meet the new demands face rejection or lengthy appeals, often with their futures in limbo. Confirmation is now essential. Behind these changes lies the fallout from the Ghost College scandal. In August 2024, authorities shut down more than 150 vocational providers, colleges that had taken fees but delivered little or no education. Many students, especially from India and Nepal, found themselves stranded, their visas at risk. For those still dreaming of an Australian education, the message is clear: only the most prepared, genuine, and well-supported need apply. A new system now decides who gets to fill Australia's most critical jobs. The Skills in Demand visa, introduced in December 2025, divides migrants into 3 tiers based on salary and occupation. At the top, Tier 1 is reserved for specialists earning above 141,210 Australian dollars, such as senior engineers, medical consultants, and tech leaders. Applications in this bracket receive priority processing and move to the front of the queue. Tier 2 covers core skills with a minimum salary of 76,515 Australian dollars. This is the new baseline, set deliberately at the median full-time wage. For employers in construction, aged care, and healthcare, this wage floor is a major hurdle. Many essential roles, including registered nurses, site supervisors, and allied health staff, struggle to meet the threshold, especially in regional areas and in public sector jobs. Tier 3, launching in 2026, will target essential skills negotiated through labour agreements. For now, most mid-range jobs must compete for a shrinking pool of places. State and territory quotas are tighter than ever. New South Wales gets just 3,600 skilled nomination spots, and Victoria gets 3,400. Western Australia warns that resource projects could stall without additional allocations. The points test has also changed. Australian work experience and advanced English now matter more than age or generic qualifications. Employers face added pressure to sponsor only those who can hit the ground running. For many businesses, especially outside the big cities, the new system means higher costs and tougher choices. The promise of a steady supply of skilled workers has given way to a maze of quotas, wage floors, and rising competition. For every job filled, others remain vacant, as the bar for entry keeps climbing. Inside Parliament, the government insists the reforms are about restoring trust. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke points to integrity checks and tighter screening, arguing that migration should fill genuine skills gaps, not just swell the numbers. But not everyone is convinced. Abul Rizvi, a former Deputy Secretary of Immigration, warns that the system is delivering uneven results. Private colleges have overshot their targets, while public universities and vocational providers are falling behind. Migration agent Mark Glasbrook sees a deeper problem. Many skilled migrants arrive without the specific competencies employers need, especially in trades and construction, and that only creates new shortages. Meanwhile, housing economists push back on the popular narrative. During the pandemic, when migration was negative, house prices still jumped 25%. Over the past decade, housing supply grew 19%, outpacing population growth at 16%. For them, tax policy and planning delays, not migration, drive the crisis. Forecasts from Treasury show net overseas migration dropping to 260,000 in 2025 to 2026, then drifting down to 225,000 the following year. Student numbers are set to rise slightly, with 295,000 places available in 2026, but each applicant will face tighter checks and stricter pathways. Universities and colleges are bracing for revenue losses, with international education worth more than $36 billion a year now under pressure. Meanwhile, employers warn of growing shortages in healthcare, construction, and hospitality as talent pools shrink. Appeals are piling up, slowing departures, and keeping some numbers artificially high. The next chapter depends on whether these controls deliver the right balance, meaning enough skilled arrivals to fill gaps, but not so many that the system buckles under the strain. Australia's new migration rules promise precision, not just restriction. But with net overseas migration forecast to fall for a third straight year, the test isn't numbers. It is whether the nation can sustain innovation and growth while tightening the filter. The world is watching what quality over quantity really means.